Okay, it's about 4:30 p.m. Wednesday, March 26th. We've all been consumed with this Pete Hegseth text thread since Monday, but I wanted to update everybody on the proceedings, the court proceedings relative to Donald Trump's deportation of a few plane loads of young men who he alleges were members of a Venezuelan street gang to a prison in El Salvador. This past Monday, the judge had issued an order. He's now saying he's trying to find out whether the Trump administration complied with that order. And so the proceedings that have happened this week in front of Judge Boasberg, the trial court judge on that, have been a contempt proceeding. He's trying to determine whether or not to hold the Trump administration in contempt. On Monday, he did issue an additional order that said the Venezuelan migrants removed to El Salvador deserved to have a court hearing before their deportations to determine whether or not they were actually members of the Venezuelan street gang Tren de Aragua. In a ruling denying the Trump administration's request to dissolve his order blocking the deportations, Trump wrote that, Judge Boasberg wrote that Trump's unprecedented use of the Alien Enemies Act does not remove the government's responsibility to ensure that the men removed could contest their designation as alleged gang members. And the judge had a lot of comments about that. And an official from ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, acknowledged in a sworn declaration last week that many of the non-citizens they deported to El Salvador did not have any criminal records at all in the United States. And that's being borne out when some of the identities of these people are becoming known. The judge wrote, the court needs to resolve the thorny, that part I'm going to skip. Judge Boasberg acknowledged that the use of the Alien Enemies Act implicates a whole host of complicated issues, but he sidestepped that by focusing on the due process issues instead. And in forcefully stating that each one of these men had a due process right to have a hearing during which the government has to put forth evidence that they are, in fact, members of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan street gang. And of course, the government is arguing, no, we don't have to do that. Donald Trump is president and is allowed to do whatever he wants to do, yada, 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 yada. And as this process is proceeding, the DOJ and Trump's administration have been refusing to answer any of this judge's questions and provide him with any detailed factual information about whether or not they did actually comply with the court's order. That's bad. The Trump administration is asking an appeals court to overturn this order that came out on Monday. We have an answer to that. That's what I'm going to talk about next. But Judge Boasberg noted in his order that the government's not being cooperative at this point, but I will get to the bottom of whether they violated my order and who ordered this and what's the consequence. So the federal appeals court earlier today upheld the restraining order from Judge Boasberg blocking the Trump administration from deporting Venezuelan nationals under the Alien Enemies Act. It was a 3-panel judge. The vote was 2-1. The two who voted to keep Judge Boasberg's order in place, an Obama appointee and a Reagan appointee. Of course, the guy who disagreed was a Trump appointee. Writing for the majority, Obama appointee Patricia Millett, she stated during oral arguments that Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemies Act than has happened here with these Venezuelan men. These people weren't given notice. They weren't told where they were going. And then they addressed one specific plaintiff. While awaiting adjudication of his asylum claim, one man was expelled to El Salvador with no notice to his counsel or his family based on a misinterpretation of a soccer tattoo. And there was another guy who was dismissed because he had an autism awareness tattoo on his arm. And the ICE guys are like, that's a gang tattoo, that's a gang tattoo, and the government's just saying, okay, that's good enough for us. That's not the way this evidence works in these cases. And after that guy with the soccer tattoo was deported, to date, his family, his counsel have lost all contact with him. They have no information at all regarding his whereabouts or his condition. They don't even know if he's still alive. The government concedes that it lacks a complete profile or even specific individual about each individual that it has targeted for removal. That's why they don't want, that's why Trump's trying to use the Alien Enemies Act to take away this due process requirement that the government prove that each one of these guys is a member of a gang, because the government concedes it lacks a complete profile or even specific information about each individual it has targeted for removal. They can't meet that burden. So they're just saying, fuck you, we don't have to. It's just disgusting what they're doing. And then in a filing last night, so the appellate court left Judge Boasberg's restraining order in place, the restraining order preventing Trump from deporting anybody under the Alien Enemies Act. The contempt proceeding is progressing, and in a late night filing last night, Tuesday night, I guess, from the DOJ, they further reiterated that they are not going to give the judge any of the specific information that he is looking for. They are really pushing Judge Boasberg to issue an order of contempt against the Department of Justice and against the Trump administration. It'll be curious to see what that looks like. I mean, is the judge going to order Donald Trump to spend the night in jail? You know, that's not going to happen. But they've been stonewalling this judge from day one. They said that verbal orders from the bench don't count as orders. That's wrong. If a judge orders you something to do something, if a judge orders you to do something in court and he says that order verbally from the bench, you are ordered to do that. That is a court order, period. It just is. And, you know, so we'll see how this contempt proceeding proceeds. You know, the ball is in Judge Boasberg's court now to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to hold the government in contempt of court? And if he does, what does that look like? Holding someone in contempt is a quasi-criminal situation. You can order somebody taken into custody. You can order them be fined. You can issue all kinds of orders in a contempt proceeding. And so I'll be curious to see what Judge Boasberg's, what he does. And hopefully we'll have an order from him by the end of the day on Friday.